What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And today, my guest is Chris Cochran. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Gary, how are you? Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sensational. We're going to have a fun time. We're going to discuss some challenging topics. We're going to enlighten some people. We're going to heal some people. We're going to uplift some people. We're going to have some fun. And
Okay,
I'm just so grateful that you're here. So if it's okay, I'm just gonna fire off your bio real quick. A little bio you sent?
sure thing. It sounds good
Right
to
on.
me.
All right. Chris Cochran is an inspiring speaker, author of What's Good About Today, A Purpose-Driven Life, and CEO of BluChip Solutions. He shares powerful message of positivity, resilience, and finding purpose through life's challenges, deeply influenced by his son's Christian's legacy. Chris empowers others to live with intention and embrace the good in every day. And that's a darn good thing to do, sir. I appreciate that.
Thank you. That's all that matters for me. So that's
Yeah.
good. That's all
Well,
that
since
matters.
we are the What If You Could podcast, I do just have one question I hit everyone with out the gate, and then we kind of go on from there. So, I mean, do you have a what if you could you'd like to share with us? A what if you could moment, a what if you could dream, or what's your what if you could?
My what if you could is pretty simple. I think if I could go back, I guess it's what if you could do it over or do different things. Obviously, the obvious is I want my son to be here and I could do things different, figure things out. But ultimately, I think, being more present in my previous life, I suppose, pre-cancer. So I think focusing on the present moments are the things I wish I had done more. It's not that I wasn't fully not present, but there are a lot of times where I was working, at a different age and trying to keep up with the Joneses like lots of people do. And I think that what gets lost when you do that is staying in the present moments. And I wish I had done more staying in the present moments uh, for more of my life. But sometimes I guess that's you got to go through a lot of things maybe, and you get older and you realize that the present moments are very important.
Yeah, if there's one young fella who taught us about being in the present moment and who actually lived it, it was Christian, right? I mean, your son Christian, I mean, God, that dude lived in the moment
Mhm.
in miraculous ways. It's it's pretty amazing. He had quite a gift, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He was, well, he's an extraordinary young man. He was an extraordinary human being. People have asked me if that's something that came from myself. The answer is no. I think Christian was gifted that, and from God. So even as a young boy, he was that way. He was an extraordinary kid when he was, born, as he grew up, and even as a teenager. I know a lot of people talk about tough teenagers, but Christian is an easy teenager because he was just full with so much kindness. So that's what made him unique. I used to always say to Christian, even when he was little, I'd say, Christian, I want to be just like you when I grow up. And I said that even when he was a child. The way he looked at the world, his empathy for the world, the way he looked at his fellow man and woman, he just had such care and compassion for every single individual he encountered. So I loved to witness it. I loved watching it. I was a fan, and I hope that the book portrays that and tells the story of a family. It's a family journey filled with love and heartache for sure, but resilience and hope that we found in Christian's words and how we live them every day. But he's I could talk forever about Christian. I just think he's an amazing guy.
You know, having been on both sides of cancer,
Mm.
it's a real family thing. It
Yeah.
really is a family thing. So, how are Danielle and Kate and Nick? I mean, how is everybody? It's been a little while, but it could seem like one day, or it could seem like 100 days, right?
Yeah, I speak a lot, different places, different age levels, so it all depends. And I always say that this type of thing, when you lose a child, it's like sticky glue. It just doesn't come off of you. It's not something that just washes away and you just kind of move on. I mean, I've lost my parents. I've lost people who, friends. And it's not that, of course, it's full of grief and it's hard because it's a universal thing we all deal with. But when you lose your firstborn son or any child for that matter, it just it's stuck to you every day. It's not something that goes away. You think of it every day. It's part of my daily life and how I interact with others. It's a part of how I treat other people. It's always there because I'm reminded of Christian's message. I'm reminded of how the goodness was there. And so, but as a family, my wife, my wife is doing well. She's doing okay as one can expect, losing her firstborn. But she's a strong, tough woman. And my son Nicholas and my daughter Kate, we've walked that journey with him, with Christian, and the experience that tested us in ways we could never have imagined. And we're there with every doctor's appointment, every treatment, every moment of hope, and every moment of fear. And ultimately, Christian faced this diagnosis with strength and faith that is beyond inspiring. And he believed that even in the face of adversity, there is still good that can be found in each day. But ultimately, his brother is doing well. He's in college, same college as Christian, studying the exact same thing. He's a junior in college. My daughter's a graduate of the same college as Christian as well. She wanted to follow Christian. That's what kind of power Christian had. They wanted to all go to the same school where Christian went. And she's doing well. She's married to a naval officer who served on the USS Cole on the destroyer and just came back from deployment from 8 months or something. So she's good. She's tough. My daughter's a toughie, so she's good, but very strong. But so everybody's doing well. That's the thing about when you go through these things, and I'm sure those who are listening know this, that you're navigating something extraordinarily deep. And many families and wives and husbands, they divorce. The divorce rates when things like this happen are, I mean, I think they're like 70% or higher. And it's important to listen to one another, and really be strong in that bond. And so we still are reminded of that every day, and we continue to be close, and that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, it really works to family. It really works relationships. Being a caregiver is one of the most challenging things you'll ever do in your life. People who haven't gone through it really don't get how challenging it is. And just touching on that subject, I remember when my wife was going through her cancer, and
Hmm.
and they said, "Well, get in the go in a men's group, and go with other men and commiserate." And I went in there and I was like, "This is horrible. These guys,
Right,
this is not a good place." They're
right.
talking about cheating, or they're talking about how hard this is. There was no empathy for the person. It really wasn't a healthy thing. But um, how do you how do you say the type of cancer that Christian had? I've tried to say it 100 times. I can't say it.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting you say that. When Christian was going through, we were learning, and I will answer your question is that they were talking to us in the early part of what kind of cancer Christian had. And there's all these different levels, right? And I think it and everyone is bad, by the way. There's no good cancer. Uh, but when you're delivered the worst cancer, you wish you had the better cancer. So Christian got something called cholangiocarcinoma. It's by layman's terms, the bile duct cancer. So the bile duct is attached to the liver, and it feeds, it sort of discards all the bad stuff out of your body. But ultimately, the bile duct is critical, and it spreads very quickly. And the thing about cholangiocarcinoma, it's usually only seen in older people and in Southeast Asia. So it's just not something you see in young people. Now there is, you know, more of it happening, and that may be due to environmental issues, the way kids eat. That's a whole nother topic. I'm convinced that these are the things that have been processed food, like, you name it. The thing about cancer is we all have cancer. You have cancer, I have cancer. Something activates that, right? And that brings it out. Um, but yeah, it's called cholangiocarcinoma. There's a cholangiocarcinoma foundation that's built around that to help those who are navigating that, because it's so rare. Life expectancies for those who are young, like Christian, it's less than 1% to make it to 5 years. So Christian, when he was diagnosed in August 26th of 2020, he was I document this in the book. I talk about this in the book, that when I walked in, the doctors all, it was 5 lab coats, and they were all, their faces were covered with masks. It was during COVID, and I was the only person that could go. But they told Christian he had a grapefruit-sized tumor on his liver, and told him what he had, and that essentially it was a terminal diagnosis. Now, Christian handled it with grace. I, of course, wobbled. I remember sort of kind of blacking out and wasn't sure, but my son reassured me and put his hand on my shoulder. Of course, he's the grown up, and said, "Dad, everything's going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. You don't need to worry." And it was just, again, another one of his many superpowers he had, and made the doctors laugh, who were completely, of course, seeing this young, beautiful boy have this horrible disease. So, when we were delivered that, yeah, it was tough. And ultimately, cholangio is just one of those things you get if you're young. It's not a good thing. So we knew, when given that, he had a very short period of time. He knew that. He knew it as if he knew it. He knew it a long time, you know?
That that chapter in that moment was pretty painful. I
Yeah.
went through it. I just keep getting goosebumps. I went through it a number of times because I've been in that room.
Hmm.
And anyone who's been in that room when the doctor walks in, and
Hmm.
maybe they have an assistant with them, or a couple, in my case, they had three doctors with them, even though it was during
Mm.
COVID. And I go like, uh-oh, I don't like three doctors here. But when
Right.
when they walked in the room with my wife, it was a guy who wasn't even our doctor. He was like, I'm just
Mm.
watching, just taking care of April's file while this guy's on vacation. He goes, oh yeah, opens it up, goes, yeah, she's got stage 4 stomach cancer. Okay, so here's the plan. And we're like, whoa, wait a minute, being in that
Mm.
room when they give you that is a wicked feeling. I mean, no one forgets being in that room. But reading about how Christian, walked you through it is pretty amazing. But there's so much I want to talk to you about the book. But just a couple other things in my head. So, what is Coeptis Therapeutic? You're on the board of. Is this cancer research thing you're involved in?
Yeah, so Coeptis is a biotech company. Of course, since I wrote the book, we're a public company on the Nasdaq, but it's become more of an umbrella company that's now creating multiple divisions. One happens to be biotech, which is cancer research, right? Hard to find snap cart therapy, and that's the areas that we focus on, the treatment of cancers that are very difficult to find. We just purchased an AI company, which that is a good enabler with the cancer research that we're doing. That's sort of the future of technology and cancer research. And so, yeah, I sit on the board for that company. Obviously, my story is very personal. I have a business sense, of course. I've been in business a while, but really at the heart of it is just us as a board figuring out, what can we do better with the scientists. We have scientists that sit on the board. There's doctors, there's people much smarter than me, I assure you. And I am just there to provide my guidance on the business side and areas where we can attack and to do better jobs and finding better ways to speed up this process. It's just a daunting task, and so that's a real passion of mine, and that's what I'm involved in every day, part of my day.
Yeah, you've got a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
It's got to be so empowering though, because One of the things about whether you have cancer yourself or a significant other, or your child has cancer, or someone that you know has cancer, it's such a helpless feeling,
Mm.
and you know that the odds are pretty bad. I mean, like you said, there aren't any good cancers. I was incredibly lucky. But you know, being able to get in there and do something proactive, and be involved in the research and the fight, it's got to be kind of cathartic for you a little bit. You feel like you're doing something when a lot of us that just can't do anything, it seems like.
Well, thank you. Well, we can all do something. I think, yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I don't want to overstate that I'm doing, I sit on the board, I advise and consent and go through things. That's my job, being a board member. But it does give me satisfaction that we're doing things that are for the good of the world, right? There's things that we're trying to do to change the world. I get a lot of, I always tell people, my heart is been plucked away from me and put back in, and just it's it's torn up and shredded. And so when I get to do things, most of the time, if getting to speak to you, this is what I'm guaranteed right now, is I get to speak to you, Gary. And I think of this as what's good about today. And I really, and this is for the whole audience, is I really focus on where I'm at that moment. Everything else just sort of goes away. I never really think about what tomorrow is going to bring, because tomorrow may not be here. So I really focus on what I can do today. And ultimately, that makes me a much more productive person. But ultimately, speaking to people, when I get to speak to people, hear their stories, counsel them. As a matter of fact, I was on this call an hour prior to you. Someone just called me because they needed support. They were going through something, didn't know them, got my name, just decided to call. And I spent an hour just counseling, going through that. And for me, they think I'm doing a lot for them, which I guess I am. I hope and I pray that that's what I'm doing. But it fills my heart with pieces of joy. So it kind of starts to, make my heart feel a little bit, gives me something to put back into the world. So ultimately, yeah, I think anybody can contribute and do different things to help their fellow man and woman anywhere, for sure.
Yeah, I know, and I want to jump into the book, but I just have
Hmm.
one more thought because the book. Well, I'll touch on that, but the foundation. You mentioned the foundation. You talked about that a little bit in the book. Tell us a little bit about the foundation and what's involved and how that's going.
So the foundation, before Christian passed away, Christian made a point that he wanted to leave something behind. Again, he knew he was going to die. About 2 months prior, he said, "Dad, what can we do to help those?" Because again, this is a kid who's thinking about others. He never thought about himself, ever. He was always thinking, how can I do something for someone else? And he said, can we do a foundation? Is there something we can set something up to help others? And that was a part, these are not the conversations as a dad I wanted to have. I'd rather be talking about school or a girlfriend or a new house or a new job.
Yeah.
But this is what we had to talk about. And he appreciated that. And he said, well, I want to set up something where we can take care of those who are less fortunate, those who are underprivileged children, those who have less means, by which he had. He felt very privileged. He felt guilty about that. He said, I want to do all I can while I'm here, but also when I'm gone, is there something we can do? So it was inspired by Christians, called the Christian Cochran Legacy Fund. It's set up through the Pittsburgh Foundation, which has been around for, I don't know, a very long time, a very reputable place, because I can't run a foundation. I sit on the board, but um, it's run by other people who can do good things and recommend things, but ultimately adhere to Christian's mission, which was to take care of those who are less fortunate. He loved nature, he loved animals. And so, school programs, things that we came back, scholarship programs. So that's what we do. We also give to what's called YASU, it's Young Adult Survivors United. It's a cancer foundation for young adults, those who are 18 to, I think they've upped that number, I think the 40 now. Because there's just so many. And it's really, Gary, it really hits your heart when you see young adults who are really it's a different population. There's pediatric cancers, and that's horrible in itself, and that's what it is. And you have those who are older who have cancer, and then these young adults who just are starting to bloom, right? They're gonna ready to start their lives. And many of them have nothing. They don't have the basic basic things in life. And so we partner with Yasu as part of that. Christian loved Yasu. He met, he knew what they did, and we provide funds to help gift bags. There's at their offices, they have like a shopping mall where they'll come in once a month, cancer patients, young adults, and it's like a tons of stuff they can get, gift cards, treats for their animals, just basic necessities. And they fill up a bag. It says what's good about today on the bag. And it's big bag, and they take it home full of things, and they can come back next month and fill it back up. And so we do that every single month. And sometimes we get 30 people, sometimes we get, 20 people, just depends. But that's just another one of the programs that we're involved in. I'm very proud of Christian and his foresight into what we could do for others to make a difference.
Wow, that one's awesome. We're definitely going to get the link to that, along with all the other stuff we want to get a link to and put it on the podcast. But I especially want to get a link to that and look deeper into that and how more
Yeah.
people can. I mean, I spent a lot of time at the City of Hope with a friend of mine who had a
Mm,
bone marrow transplant at the City of Hope,
mhm,
and it's it's one of the most miraculous places. I mean,
mm.
I maybe some people have different opinions on it, but for me, it was one of the most miraculous places on the planet. And when you see all these kids wheeling around there, I remember when Christian said, "I'm walking my," what do you say? I'm walking my drugs.
Yeah, you saw that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's in the book,
I
right?
just thought that was.
Yeah, he's walking his drug, like walking your dog. I think there's another one in there where Christian, it's actually the last post he made. He was an 80s genre kid. So he loved old Walkmans, and he had a Walkman, and he was in a wheelchair, and that's not more than probably a month and a half before he passed. But he says, Walkman, not lately. He had a sense of humor. Like he was never able to walk after that, right? But that's an amazing talent that he just again found comedy in everything, right? And I mentioned in the book, this Christian would say, "Don't take life too seriously," and that's how he looked at things. But yeah, that's walking the drugs, and he was walking his IV, and again, leave it to Christian to throw humor into everything to
Oh yeah,
keep
because
us
I mean, you go to the
still
City
grounded.
Hope or a lot of these hospitals. These little kids, they've got their bandana on because they've lost their
Mhm.
hair because of the chemo,
Mhm.
and they're wandering around racing with their drug bag, and you
Yeah,
think, God, how do these kids do it? How do these kids do it? It's just amazing. But
yeah, that
um,
is amazing. That's a
so
that's a great program.
about the book, I mean, as you can see, it's highlighted, it's dog-eared. To me,
Hmm.
what's good about today, a purpose-driven life. Um, it's not a book you read. I mean, it is. I mean, people would read it and go, "Wow, great story. I feel bad and all that stuff." But to me, honestly, it's almost a working document. I mean, it's almost something that you can. I highlighted so many things. I stopped highlighting because I thought, well, everything will just be highlighted, but which kind of defeats the
That's
purpose of
great.
highlight.
Oh no, that's good.
But there's so many things, and one of the things I just enjoyed and
Hmm.
I stopped highlighting because I've highlighted every single one was concluding thoughts inspired by Christian. And I thought, at the end of every paragraph, for those who haven't read the book, which everyone on the planet needs to, but how you just concluded the paragraphs with concluding thoughts inspired by Christian. And then like this one just remain grateful on any journey. The existence of life can be found in small, mundane things. Encourage others to find the good in today and observe your blessings. Um, I mean, just things like that, just throughout the book, are really powerful and really, you know, bring you back. I
Yeah,
just loved that part about the book.
thank you. I feel overjoyed to hear that. That gives me a lot of sense of joy. And yeah, I that's why when you look, it is inspired by Christian. So yeah, I wrote it, but the truth is when I wrote this book, I wrote it through the eyes of Christian. And I wanted to make sure that I was honoring him as a, for me, it wasn't that I was writing this book about, this isn't about me, right? This is about Christian. This is about my family, right? Some people have said, they say, what's this book about? What's it about? And I tell you, it's a book of love. It's a love story. That's what this book is about. If you want to know about love, you want to understand love better and deeper, this is it. I remember when Christian passed away, and again, I mentioned this in the book. He died in our house, surrounded by all his love. And his doctor, you don't hear of doctors showing up and doing doctor visits. It's an unusual thing, right? But they would come over just to see Christian, just to get a tap into that amazing person. And I remember when Christian passed, I remember hugging her, and she said, Christian just taught us how to live, and he taught us how to die. It's poignant, it's straightforward, but it's true. But yeah, the book is a journey too, right? I like, you can't just tell the story without telling the life story of how I met my wife and how we built this family and what we were, our journey, but ultimately telling the story of Christian as a child and how he lived his life and how he looked at the world, right? That's why I talk about his Taoism too, and how he thought of that, right? As part of
Mhm.
his thought process and how to flow with the river as opposed to fighting the current and
Mhm.
detailing that. And because he would talk about it and he loved, we were obviously Christians and his name's Christian. We're Catholics, and he loved that. But he loved all faiths. He loved all people. And he thought, there's so many similarities between these things. And so I hope I tried to draw that within the book, the way he looked at things, as best I could. And I think he definitely did because I hear from him, and he's been my best supporter always, always my best supporter.
Yeah. Well, his spirituality, came through the book, and that was one of my favorite chapters is uh, Christian's Tao.
Hmm.
Um, I thought of myself on someone. I'm not a very religious person,
Hmm.
unfortunately. I find myself pretty spiritual and
That's
believe in a
good.
lot of different things. And I thought myself fairly rounded on different religions and the scope of them and why we all can't get along.
Yeah,
And I really
nice.
hadn't gone too deep in Taoism until I read this book, and then I
Huh.
started Googling Taoism and Jesus. Would
Yeah.
Jesus have been a Taoist? And stuff like that. It's just because the book brings out such beautiful things in that chapter. It
Yeah.
just about the going with the flow and all the things that he put in there. And again, like I highlighted the first one, then I just highlighted all, and I go, just stop highlighting. Just it doesn't even. But it really is beautiful how he did, and his spirituality, and he took all that in,
Yeah.
encompassing, all of the religions. Although yes, he was very much Jesus, in love with Jesus and
Hmm.
his Savior and your
Hmm.
Christianity and your faith. But he wasn't disregarding of other religions or other people at all. I think one of the things that I loved, the art of pausing.
Mm.
Love that, man.
Yeah. It is an art. Um, it's one of those things that I'm always trying to perfect and get better at. But it, as I talk, pausing is where you find a lot of grace and the present moments. Think before you say something that you don't want to say. Allows you to reflect a lot deeper. I didn't have that before. Many people have asked me if, you know, I'm two different people. If you ask me to talk about the guy I was prior to cancer, I don't know that guy. I was a different mentality, how I looked at the world and how I went about things. I just was on that wheel, you know, and you don't ever think it's going to happen to you, right? It's not going to happen to you. I mean, um, and it does, and especially, we're very faithful people. I mean, not like we don't go to church every week. We raised our kids a certain way, and most importantly, to be good people, right? And to love everybody. That's the key. And that was important to bring through the book, right? The spirituality which you have is fantastic, right? And that's okay. There's no the greatest gift Christian had was no judgment. It's the toughest skill one can. I don't know if it's a skill. It is difficult for most people to not judge other people, right? We judge all the time. And he did not. He understood things, he understood people, and he never judged you based on your faith, what your race was, your gender. None of that stuff mattered. It was the core of the person. And I have so many stories that reflect that, from letters from others in the book, which is towards the end. But I reflect on a lot of those letters, and people have met Christian for 5 minutes, and there's so many different things that I reflect that are all about the encompassing of Christians bringing all people in. It didn't matter, right? That was what was important to him. But I'm
And
glad
kind of
you
like you,
mentioned that.
yeah, kind of like when we started the conversation about, just what we do. You're building your company, you're blowing it up, you're working hard. You were still great with the family. You guys traveled, you guys were tight. But
Right.
you're on that hamster wheel. You're still on that thing, and a lot of the things you talked about, was just when this happens, and I experienced it too. We were
Hmm.
blowing and going, and then you just go, you know what? None of that matters. I mean, zero, none. Yeah, we like to
Right.
have a nice house and nice
Sure.
vacations and nice stuff, but I mean, literally in the moment, you know, um, just none of that matters because wha- it doesn't do anything for your soul. It just doesn't. And the one thing that came through about Christian is just his soul was so good. His soul was so kind. I stopped reading the letters from people because I couldn't do it. I go, okay, I got to pick this up tomorrow. I mean, I have two sons, and
How old
losing
are they?
them. Christopher is,
Oh, great name.
yeah, I know, right? Christopher, I think is going to be 32.
Okay.
Is he gonna be? Yeah, Christopher's gonna be 32.
Yep.
Zachary is just turned 31. It's funny, they're
Okay.
they're a year apart for a little bit until Chris. No, Zachary just turned 30. That's right. So they're 30 and 31.
Wow.
So
Like
Christopher
they're
is
like
my,
Christian and Kate are the same way, 1 year apart. Yeah.
yeah, I think yours are 15 months, right?
15 months, right?
And
Almost
ours are,
Irish twins.
yeah, exactly. And ours are 16 months. So it's kind
Okay.
of funny.
See, yeah.
So Christopher is a partner with me in our real estate company, and Zachary's in the Air Force. He does canine
Hmm.
training. He's at Andrews Air Force Base out in
Wow.
your neck of the woods. Um, losing their mom, so much of Danielle reminded me of April. It's been 10 years. I think it was
I'm sorry.
yesterday, but
Yeah.
the one of the things that you guys, one of your last trips when you went to the Grand Canyon, and Christian and Dale got up early, and
Yeah.
they did the Bright Angel
Trail.
Trail, and I
Yeah.
and I thought, man, what a last adventure for someone like Christian to be on a Bright Angel Trail, right?
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that is that if we went there for Christmas and the when we first arrived, you can see the canyon. So we were there in the winter, so there's clouds everywhere. You couldn't even see the canyon. So I remember we're driving the kids, we're all in the car together. We pull up, we stay at the Bright Angel Lodge, and we all went. I said, "You got to see this." We go out, you can't see anything. And I remember my kids going, "This is it. This is what is this?" And I go, I'm telling you, it looks totally different than this. You are going to be blown away." And I think the next day came. I think we stayed there a couple nights. I'm trying to, my memory's a little lost, but the next day, I don't think it was there. We did something else, still tons of clouds. But the last day, the day we were going to leave, is the day that Christian and his mom got up really early, and went out there together. And everything had cleared, and it was absolutely beautiful and stunning. And yeah, I think moms have such a deep connection with their kids, and she did. I say this often, is that Christian was the center of our family. A lot of times you think it's your parents or me or his mother. Nope, it was Christian. Christian was the center for all of it. He was my best friend. He was my wife's best friend. He was my kid's best friend. He was the one that kept, because my daughter's, she's trying to deal with the in-betweens of the two boys, and my youngest is, and so he just kept us all kind of on the right straight and narrow. He's the most adventurous and most reasonable. And but yeah, that's a beautiful trip. I mean, I'm blessed we got to do it, but it's hard to think about it because it feels like like you say, maybe 10 years, but people don't truly understand unless you go through it. But it happened to me. It could have happened just hours ago. So it's still there. It's still painful. It's daily painful, but you find ways to inspire yourself to get up and do good works. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, and that's that's what's inspiring of so much that you're doing. I remember the first time we hadn't visited Zach in a long time. He
Hmm.
was stationed in Texas and Lackland Air Force Base, and he had just bought his first house and been in it. And we visited, and then I didn't really snoop around that much. When he bought his second house, also on the other side of Lackland, just different neighborhood. I went into his bedroom, and this had been, gosh, 5 years since his mom had passed, 6 years from,
Yeah.
and there was a shrine there.
Hmm.
Multiple pictures of her, some stuff from her service, pictures of them. I was just shocked. I
Hmm.
You don't realize the impact, a mother has on a son has on a mother, family members
Yeah.
together. I mean, I knew obviously it affected our kids, but I was really blown away by that memorial that
Hmm.
he had. And he said, "You didn't know I had this?" I go, "No." He goes, "Yeah, I've had it every place I've lived since mom passed." So
Hmm.
when I was reading the book, What's Good About Today, it was like the relationship between Danielle and Christian just brought it home so much to me because that was the relationship that Zach had with
Yeah, I
his
can hear that.
mom. So
Yeah.
on one side it was so wonderful, on the other side it's like, ow, you know.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts. But I think in the pain you find the moments of, I think that's the part we have to embrace, right? It's just the pain is as best we can. We're still here. You're still here. I'm still here. For whatever reason, I couldn't, don't know, you know. And I'm sure you would give up your life for your wife. You would switch places if you could. You do it in a millisecond if given the opportunity. Um, and I certainly would too, and my wife would too. But it's just not how the game's played, I guess. That's not how we're put into this earthly being. So we'll navigate it the way we're supposed to, and realize we're just not in control. Not
Yeah.
ultimately. I'm not the guy who's in control of things. I'm just do what I can do.
That was always my thing. It's like, dude, why did you take her and not me? She's
Right,
such a good person. Why? I was
right,
like, why did you take her? You could have totally taken me. It wouldn't have,
right. Could have taken me too.
yeah, it would
We
have
had
been a
a
speed bump.
perfectly
No,
fine,
I mean,
vice.
because April had such a legacy and she affected so many lives, and I could have been gone. Everyone, you know, they wouldn't even have brought casseroles. It's like when I had like 500 casseroles. It was the craziest
Oh, I'm
thing.
sure somebody would have brought a casserole for you, but uh, I'd have brought one for you.
But
Um,
it's that gratitude mindset, that you're talking about. You're grateful for the time that you had.
mhm.
You understand, you're, empathetic about the other people, and you understand it just comes in waves. I mean, it's going to come in waves. It's never going to stop. It's just going to it's riding waves as of the emotions. Something You'll see something, you'll hear a song, someone will call you out of the
Sure.
blue and say, "Oh man,
Yeah.
I would love Christian." And it's just like, ooh, so you really just
Yeah.
need to learn. I just tell people I'm a surfer now. I just learned to ride the waves. Otherwise, I'd just still be curled up in the fetal position and not leave my house.
Yeah. That's true. I've said this before, I use a karate chop whenever I feel that happening to me. I sort of physically go, "Mm-mm." I've got to, because it can spiral you. And it certainly did for the first year and a half of just, not really focused and not really just not there, trying to, trying to answer all those questions you just talked about. Why not me? Why not, there's, so many bad people in this world. There's a lot of great people in this world too, but I like to think more good than bad, but there's a lot of bad people and you wonder, well, why are they getting to stick around? But I don't know. Maybe God's building an army for something. I don't know. Take all the good people. Maybe we're stuck here to figure it all out and get better at what we're doing.
Yeah, I hope that's what's going on because I
I think
know
it
that
is.
she's
Yeah.
up there leading the meeting. She's up,
Oh yeah.
April's up there doing the
Hi, April.
fundraising and leading. I'm sure she's up there with Christian and he's with April, and they're like, "Hey, man, okay, we
Uh,
better take charge of this and get this stuff handled." Um,
Absolutely.
as far as since we're on that subject, as far as moving forward, I mean, you've got so much. You've got your own corporation. You've got the foundation. You have, you're on the board of these things. Um, what's it like now, moving forward, as we try to get back into some sort of normal life, or is it just not going to be that way anymore? It's not going to be pre-Christian. It's going to be post-Christian, and this is how we're going to roll from now on.
Hmm. That's a great question. I wish I had an answer for that. The truth is I don't really know. I think I truly do take one day at a time. I use the mantra, what's good about today, in my own life. And I want to be true to that, which is just to focus on what I can do today, not, I mean, obviously there's things I do today that affect things in the future and can do good works, right? But, I think, I mean, I don't know, it's been, what, 3.5 years since, Christian passed. And, you know, I don't know how I'll feel in 5 years to 7 years, 10 years. I hope the knife is duller than it is. I suspect it will be, right? Because, there becomes the new norm, right? As we adjust, I have two children that I'm focused on, and my wife, and the things that I can do for them, they can do for me. And it's a weird, as you probably, holidays and birthdays and uh, any event that comes about, my gosh, there's just too many, right? Every other month or every month, there's something that is a reflection of those people and those wonderful human beings. And so it doesn't stop. So I think you do the best you can to navigate it all through it, but I hope it definitely gets a little easier for sure on the soul.
Is it? I mean, I've stayed to myself. I've talked
Mm,
about a lot more. I started a first podcast off called Grief Pie, and it
mm,
was two guys sharing grief one bite at a time. It was me and my buddy who had both lost our wives to cancer, and we'd been friends for
mm,
30 years, known each other's family. But it just got so depressing, we stopped it because we'd both be whining and crying. And it's like, no, this is
right.
ridiculous. No one wants to listen to this stuff. So you're the one. It was brutal. It was terrible.
That
It's
sounds
still on.
brutal.
It's still out there, but whatever. But you seem to be the face of this for your family. I mean, so does
Mm,
it? Is it hard to just keep doing this, go on these podcasts, go on these meetings and talk to me? I mean, is it hard?
yes.
Because I just didn't, or is it easier just to just like, does it get easier because you do that?
I think the key is, and this is good for the audience, is that I always try to preface when I speak, to tell people this is not meant to depress you. I'm not here to make you sad. I'm not, and that's true because Christian would be really kind of not happy with me. That's not how he lived his life. He never wanted me to do that. I mean, when I say not happy with me, he's so kind. He would have just been like, Dad, don't, you but I think that as long as I'm able to put out joy into the messaging, because that's the thing. Yes, Chris, what good this is cancer and the death of a son and all these, and you talk in detail, right? For me, that was important because it's not about cathartic for me. It was important that I told a story to be authentic, right? I don't think you can tell a story if you're not authentic to the core and tell the things that you need to tell. Now, there are things in this book I don't talk about as it relates to my son Nicholas's relationship, which was beautiful, but I didn't want to I gave Nicholas the opportunity to review the book because I didn't want to put something that would hurt him, and because they're private things that are for him that I didn't want others to have. And but I thought telling the story, you have to be authentic and you have to do it. But at the end, it's really to show people that there is hope. There is hope in resilience. There's, in pain and suffering, you can look at it in a different light and you can come out of this, um, it's not so much stronger, but with the resilience to do good for others, right? I think that has been one thing for me. And I think with your wife, with my child, one of the things we fear, this is what I fear the most. I think most people can fear. I'm pretty sure we don't want those to be forgotten while we're here, right? It is a painful thought to think that we move on with our life, but yet we don't talk about those people. And I felt like, this is an extraordinary human being. I had to tell people about him. People know about him. He's very well known, at least around our area and stuff. But he was incredibly talented. And I just think it's important to share that if you can, the book to the point, which is at every end of every chapter, sorry, is Christian's inspiration, is because I wanted to highlight, like, hey, you can go back to the book and you can look at these pieces. You don't have to read the whole book. I get, read it again or whatever. But I think there are pieces in here you can look at and go, okay, I see how this guy led a purposely driven life. I'm always trying to lead a purposely driven life. That was why I came up with that point, is I realized, hey, this kid lived a purposely driven life. He lived probably 4 lifetimes of other people. And I think if we could just garner a little of that, we can also find a fulfillment in this life that we have, which, by the way, is very short, but you can still have a good time and you can still do good things. And that's the key. I wanted to make sure that that's what I got out and I continue to do. Hopefully I get the chance to do it. But yeah, to your original question is, do I get tired or do I get worn down from it? Yes, it does wear me down. I'd be lying if I told you, no, I'm just a happy guy, No, it wears me down because it takes something out of my soul. I can fill it back up though. I fill it right back up, but I think, yeah, it can wear you down.
Yeah. I think that's interesting what you said because if, that's what I said at the beginning. Let's try to make a challenging topic. Let's try to make it light, make it beautiful, make it about love, make it fun. If you can, cancer and death, right? I mean,
Sure,
not easy.
right.
But the truth is, if you've read the book, everything we're talking about is beautiful, right?
Yeah,
There's no pain, there's no sadness, there's no lot. If you haven't read the book, then you could be like, oh man, I don't want to hear these dudes talking about, death and cancer and all this stuff, right? Because
right,
you don't have a context of from where we've come. And
right.
and that's why, like I said, I mean, to me, the book is something you can go back to on a regular basis. I mean, you could almost you guys could just put together what's good about today, a purpose-driven life journal, where basically, I mean, people every day could go through it. This is a great idea, by the way. Um,
Yeah.
and take a lot of Christianisms and just that's your message for today. And at the end of the day, right, were you able to pull that off? Were you able to take Christian's message of that day and bring it into the world for Christian and for the world, for the planet, for humanity, which is really in need of someone to take us into some
Yeah.
goodness. But I
Yeah.
mean, really, I mean, it's that type of book. It's the type of book where you could go back, which I have, because it's led me down other paths.
Mm-hmm.
And
Good.
which is the best thing about a book. You could tell I happen to love books.
Yeah.
Anytime you could pick up a book that takes you down another path and makes you think and makes you want to go back to it is a spectacular book.
Oh, thank you.
So I can see how it could be draining for you, though. I mean, I tear up at the drop of a hat. I'll hear something, it'll just take me to my knees. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it. But that's like, what do they say about grief? It's just love. It's just love showing each other side or something like that. It's saying
Yeah.
about grief. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think and by the way, the book is, again, I get all kinds of people that come to my speaking engagements. Speak at university levels, I speak at students, 100 students, and the impact that it has even on young adults. I that message is a little different than when I go and speak with older folks who are coming there for a reason, right? They've either read the book, heard about the book, want some idea how to navigate things. I see that a lot. Some people want to corner me to say, hey, I'm navigating this. What would you do? Um, I do the best I can under the circumstances. I leave you this. I know I talk about this. Humor is very important, by the way. So the book does have humor in it. So I don't, it's all, again,
Lots of humor in it.
yeah,
Yeah, Christian had
right.
a great sense of humor.
Great, phenomenal sense of humor. And I tell this story, and I've told it before. I remember, again, it sounds, about 3 months prior, Christian was, we would go on walks. We used to regularly go on walks. I would make Christian, let's go for walks and keep his body moving. And he did great, and you wouldn't know anything, if you didn't know him, other than he had no hair, but and he had the most beautiful hair, by the way. I will tell you, the best hair of anybody you ever met. And he loved his hair. Um,
Brown, curly, and
oh,
feathered and
gorgeous.
fabulous.
It was gorgeous. And he we went on one of these walks in particular, and we went on a long walk, and I remember, because I thought of Christian as a philosopher, he could kind of give me good advice, and I remember asking Christian, Christian, do you have any regrets in this life? And and he said, "Yeah, Dad, I have one regret." And I said, "Oh gosh, what could this regret be? It's got to be a big thing." And I said, "Well, what is it?" And he goes, "I did way too much homework in school."
I remember.
And I chuckled at him. I said, "Come on, Christian, it's got to be something bigger." He goes, "No, Dad, I swear to you, that is the one thing I wish I'd just done a lot less homework." And of all the things you can think about under the circumstances, when and he meant that. He wasn't trying to be, he was funny, naturally funny, but he meant that. That was true to him. That was what was on his mind, that he had done too much of one thing, homework. And I used to get on him constantly about his homework. But but yeah, he found humor, and like you mentioned, he did funny Instagram post, and I'm not sure. Did we talk about that off the air, or was that on the air?
That
About the
was on the air.
Walkman?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, it
yeah,
was,
yeah.
okay, good.
About
Yeah, the
walking his
walk. Yeah,
drug and
yeah,
about the Walkman.
yeah.
Yeah, the
Right. So
Walkman was classic. Walkman,
yeah,
not much
not
lately.
not lately. So again, I think that's important for people. The book's not just it is a book for all kinds of folks, which is, if someone's trying to look at a more deeper meaning of life and see, hey, look, this is something that didn't happen to me. I haven't had this happen to me, but I can pick up nuggets of finding more present moments with my own family. I like to think, if I had read that book 10 years ago, that could it have made a difference? Maybe it would have. I may have looked at things a little bit differently, and how I went approached life, and how I treated people, how I went about my daily life. Not that I was an ogre by any stretch. I'm sure if you had asked half the people that like me or don't, they'd get half and half. Christian's 100%. I can't find a single person that didn't like him. But me, you get half and half. But I like to think that that percentage has risen over time, because I just think you got to treat people a lot better and kinder.
Well, you're carrying that message forward for sure, and you've been so gracious with your time. We're pretty much got to wrap up here, but so I did lie earlier. I said I just had the one question of the "what if you could" question, but I lied.
Hmm. Oh, good.
I'm a liar.
Uh-oh.
So I always finish my podcast with one last question, and I
Hmm.
ask everybody the same question, and I give you the heads up about the other one, but I don't give you the heads up about this one because I kind of want it to be from the heart,
Sure.
and so. It could be about Christian, it could be about your family, about your business, it could be about anything you want. But if there was something that Christopher Cochran had wanted to leave us with, something from the heart, a message, um, what might that be that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, here's if again, there's a lot of things we talked about, and there's a lot of messaging. There's a lot of words. English only has so many words. Uh, but hope that those who listen to this, and maybe they choose not to get the book, but they heard the message of what's good about today, right? And I tell this to anybody, which is say it in the morning, say it in the afternoon, and say it at night. You can say it any time. It's not like you have to say it at the end of the day and go, what's good about today? Because the thing is we have bad days, sometimes really horrible days, some mediocre days, whatever. But you can look back on every single day and ask that question, what's good about today? To question yourself and say, you know what? There was good today because I spoke to my brother, my mother, my son. He had something good happen to him. Or even when something bad happens, you can look back and say there was a laughter moment. There was a beautiful sunset. Sometimes they're simplistic. It doesn't always have to be complex and this deep meaning. What it does is it recenters you as a human being. What it does is it recenters you into the present moments, whether it's to say, yeah, I actually today was pretty good because I did the following things. And I guess the second thing is Christian had many of us have to-do list, right? We have check marks. We base our life based on what we can achieve in that day or multiple things. Christian had a to-love list. So I'd encourage everyone who's listening, change your list from a to-do list to a to-love list. Focus on the things and how much love you can get at each day. You can write it down in the morning. Here's how many people I want to try to talk to. Here's how much impact I want to have on this individual. How many kind words I can say. And put it into action. And you will see the results come back to you in spades. It's amazing. So I hope that answers your question.
I love that. I just love that. I love everything about what's good about today. I can't wait to see the What's Good About Today, a Purpose-Driven Life journal. I can't wait to see that so that everyone can buy that accompanied with the book. But everyone's got to get the book. I mean, it's a simple book, but it's not. It's a small book, but it's not. Right. It's a big book in a little package, and there's just so much good in there. I'm just so grateful that you came to join me. Again, this is Christopher Cochran, about his son, Christian Cochran. What's good about today? A purpose-driven life. You're doing so much. You're walking the talk, and I just blessings to you, your family, your son, your daughter, your wife Danielle, and just keep doing what you're doing. Every day, like you said, what's good about today? It's a good message.
Gary, thank you. God bless you. God bless your family. I'll think about them, and I'll think about your boys and your wife, and I'll ask my son Christian, if he hasn't met her already, to introduce himself to her, and I'm sure he will. I know he will. And so no, I appreciate the opportunity to have this platform to talk to you. And to talk to your audience, and thank you for reading my book. It gives me again another piece of joy that I always need. So thank you for doing that and helping me get it out there.
You got it, my friend. One last thing about April and Christian. April had the thickest, most beautiful brown hair and the greenest emerald eyes you've ever seen. They don't even look real. They're so good. So yeah, I know Christian had brown eyes, but they'll just Christian, look for the gal with really big brown hair, and she'll look for the young man with the really brown curly, and they'll find each other.
I think if we can find people in this world pretty easily, it seems like, I think in that world they can find people probably instantaneously. So I don't think it's that different in when the world in which they live, that they can find each other pretty quickly. So I think that'll happen. Not a problem. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Christian, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. We're going to make sure we have the links on this podcast to everything, to the book, to the foundations, especially to the kids who can go in there and pick stuff up. That's really an awesome thing. I want to make sure everyone has a chance to donate to that. So this has been really, really great, my friend. I'm super grateful. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you. Grateful. Thank you. Thanks, Gary.
All right, guys. See you next time on the What If You Could podcast.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.